What if I told you that you could instantly improve your writing by simply cutting these 10 words from your novel? A few years ago, I posted this video all about the 10 weak words you should cut from your novel, and you guys loved that video so much and got so much out of it that I decided to make a part 2. 10 more weak words that you should cut from your novel. In most cases. And I say in most cases because there is a time and place for these weak words, and we're going to look at that in this video. We're going to look at side-by-side comparisons of when you should cut this word and when you should keep it.
Why does your story matter? Good question. What if I told you that there's a science behind every great story? I don't just teach you how to write. I teach you how to change the world with your story and make your author dreams come true.
Before we get into this list of weak words, I want to ask you to take a quick second to hit the subscribe button below this video. Not only does it help make my content rise to the top, but it also makes sure that you never miss a new video from me as we explore writing and publishing together. New videos every Wednesday, and I want you here in the community, so hit the subscribe button below. One last disclaimer before we get into this discussion. I almost always disregard any use of these weak words in dialogue. So I like my dialogue to sound super realistic, super authentic, very human, and most humans don't speak with perfect grammar all the time. We don't always find the perfect right word for what we're trying to say. So if you want your characters to continue to have their own voice and be messy and imperfect in their dialogue, do that. I'm more focusing on descriptions and prose here. So when I talk about weak, sloppy words and what we can replace them with, we are going to be looking at strengthening our prose, or anything that isn't dialogue. Okay, so let's get into the list. First, number 1 is feel. Getting the party started right away with some good old-fashioned filter words. Filter words are exactly what they sound like. They basically filter what we're seeing through the sense of how the point of view character is perceiving it. Hear, see, taste, smell, touch. Worst of them all is feel. Most of the time, feel doesn't need to be there. It can just be deleted and nothing changes, except it changes for the better. It sounds better. Usually removing the filter word feel puts us more directly in the shoes of the character, allowing us to feel what they're feeling without being told that they're feeling it. Example, I feel the cold wind biting into my skin as I stand on the desolate beach. If we cut that word, we would be forced to make this description more active, like the cold wind bites into my skin, chilling me to the bone as I stand on the desolate beach. Much more immersive, and it literally forces us to make our descriptions more juicy and active and intense. This works with third person as well. Helen felt her heart racing when she heard his voice over the phone, or Helen's heart raced at the sound of his voice over the phone. Sometimes the word feel is effective when you're focusing more on the internal emotions of a character and something that they are perceiving without a physical sense. For example, I don't know how I feel about seeing my sister again after years of silence. Or when your character is comparing their sense of physical touch to something more metaphorical. For example, the silk dress feels like liquid gold between my fingers. Okay, so here is your rule of thumb. Cut it when feel is just a filter for a sensation you could make more active. Keep it when your character is not experiencing any physical sensory input, feeling with their emotions, or they're making a feels like comparison. Number 2 weak word is think. This is another filter word. It's not a physical sense, but it is often unnecessary. Especially if we're inside the character's head during their narration. We don't need to be told what they're thinking. If it's on their mind, they're thinking about it. We know they're thinking about it. We can see they're thinking about it because we're in their head with them. So for example, I think about how angry Carol was on the school bus this morning. She didn't even look in my direction when I said hi. I think she's still mad at me for what happened at homecoming. Now, if we took the word think out of this sentence, Carol was so angry on the school bus this morning. She didn't even look in my direction when I said hi. Is she still mad at me for what happened at homecoming? And see what happened there? We were literally forced to make the last part of that paragraph more active, turning it into a question, making the experience of this character's thoughts feel that much more personal and deep point of view. When can you use the word think? when it enhances the narrative by emphasizing a character's uncertainty or their contemplative mood. Example, I think I might still love him even after all these years. In this case, I think is fine because we're focusing on the internal conflict and more on them processing their feelings rather than coming to a definitive conclusion. So, rule of thumb, cut it when you can show us the character's perceptions without a filter. Keep it when emphasizing the character's uncertainty. Weak word number 3 is see. See can act as a sneaky filter word, again, putting unnecessary distance between the reader and the action. And just like with feel, see can usually be cut out completely to create a more visual, vivid experience. For example, I see the lightning split the sky as we run for cover. Lightning splits the sky as we run for cover. The second example plunges the reader straight into the action and lets us see what the characters are seeing without having to say that they're seeing it. Maggie jumped when she saw a shadow dart across the hallway out of the corner of her eye. Or Maggie jumped as a shadow darted across the hallway out of the corner of her eye. However, there are times when see can be a helpful word to use, particularly when a character is actively observing something, or when their act of seeing is pivotal to their experience or the plot. For instance, in a case where a character is observing something that may be unnoticed by others. Only Natasha could see the grief in her grandmother's eyes as she thumbed through the old photo album. Or when the act of seeing is part of a reflective, contemplative, character-building moment. As he watched the sunrise, he saw not just the dawn of a new day, but the possibility of a new beginning. So here's your rule of thumb. Cut it when see is just a filter for something that could be described more vividly. Keep it when the act of seeing is crucial to the character's experience or the plot, or when it emphasizes an introspective or private observation. Weak word number 4, wonder. Again, this one creates distance between us and the character. You can almost always rephrase a sentence that starts with I wonder into a question and get us immediately in the character's head without that space between. For example, I wonder if she'll come back after all that happened. I wonder if it's too late to make amends. That turns into, will she come back after all that happened? Is it too late to make amends? Just like with the school bus example earlier, this forces us to turn it into a question and plunge us into the character's inner world. It highlights their uncertainty. It makes us feel their doubt. However, there are times when you can use the word wonder to underscore your character's contemplative mood or their actual feelings of wonder and curiosity, like this. I've always wondered about the world outside my small country village. What adventures lie beyond the mountain ridge waiting for me? So here's your rule of thumb. Cut it when wonder merely introduces a question that can be rephrased with a question mark. Keep it when the speculative or contemplative tone of wonder adds emotional resonance. Weak word number 5 is didn't or don't. Didn't can often feel like hitting pause on the story to tell us something totally unnecessary, to tell us what didn't happen, instead of telling us what happened. This is one that I'm very guilty of. I'm always catching this in my writing, doing these double redundancy things of like, I didn't do this, but I did do this. And most of the time, you don't have to tell us what you didn't do. Okay, so for example, like this. She didn't notice the time slipping by as she read her book. Could easily turn into, she lost track of time, engrossed in her book until midnight. Or, I don't take the main road home. Instead, I veer off onto a winding back road, my windows down as I relish the sweet smell of honeysuckle and the summer breeze. Instead, let's take out the negative and see how it sounds. I take the long, winding back road home, my windows down as I relish the sweet smell of honeysuckle and the summer breeze. However, there are some instances where you're going to want to keep this word, and that's when you're emphasizing why it's important what the character didn't do. For example, when her ex walked by, she didn't give him the satisfaction of looking up. In this case, the word didn't highlights a deliberate choice on the part of the character and shows us something about their internal state. In short, cut it when didn't merely states what was avoided. Instead, focus on what the character actively does. Keep it when the inaction is intentional, revealing something crucial about the character or the situation. Weak word number 6, almost. This word can often water down the impact of your description because you're not quite there, are you? You've almost found the right word for it, but it's not quite the right word for it. So maybe there's a more accurate word for what you're trying to say instead of almost this. The sun almost touched the horizon, casting long shadows across the beach. We could turn that into something like, the sun kissed the horizon, stretching long shadows across the beach. Or, she almost cried when she heard the news. Tears welled up in her eyes when she heard the news. In the second version, the action is more specific and accurate to what's actually happening, what's actually being seen, which gives us a clearer picture of what's going on. However, almost can be useful when you are emphasizing a near miss or something that truly almost happened. He almost won the race, his fingers brushing the finish line just as his competitor surged ahead. Here, almost is key. You could not cut that out of that sentence without ruining the sentence because it is emphasizing the near miss. It is emphasizing how close he was to winning, but didn't. In short, cut it when almost weakens what you're trying to say. Look for a more accurate word. Keep it when the near miss, slight failure, or brush with success is vital to the story's tension. Weak word number 7, there was. There was and there is are both phrases that can make your writing feel sluggish and passive. By eliminating them, you're often forced to make the description more active and juicy and colorful. Like this. There was a large menacing dog blocking the path. That could become, a large menacing dog blocked the path, baring its teeth at me. Stripping away there was immediately brings the action into focus, creating a more vivid image. There is a tension in the room that you could cut with a knife. Or, tension hums in the air between us, sharp as a knife's edge. See how just by eliminating these 2 words, you are literally forced to find a better, stronger, more accurate description? However, there is a time and place for there was and there is, and you need to use your own judgment here. A lot of times when you are writing more of a narrative that is contemplative and editorializing in your character's head, you can easily use there was and there is scattered throughout your writing without it feeling passive, such as this. Things would never be the same, and there was nothing I could do about it. This one is tricky because it really depends on the situation that you're using it in, so exercise your own judgment here and go slow when chopping this word. In short, cut it when there was or there is just serves as a lazy gatekeeper to a more dynamic action. Challenge yourself to make your descriptions more active. Keep it when it contributes to the narrative voice or mood in a way that enhances the story rather than distracts from it. Up and down. Up and down are 2 words, I know, but they both are used in the same context usually and often don't need to be there. And by deleting these words, you can make your action more quick and immediate and flow more smoothly. For example, she stood up and began pacing the room. She stood and began pacing the room. Here, up doesn't change the meaning of the sentence and it just makes the action happen quicker and clearer. He sat down on the bench becomes he sat on the bench. However, there are instances where up and down are important for clarity as far as what direction things are moving in when it's not already clear. He climbed up the steep cliff, muscles straining with each move. Or she dashed down the corridor, her footfalls echoing. In these examples, up and down are essential for conveying the direction of where these characters are moving. So, rule of thumb, cut it when up and down are merely padding common actions where the direction is obvious. Keep it when these words provide necessary directions. Weak word number 9, because. This word has a bad habit of sneaking its way into your writing and bridging 2 actions without forcing you to make that connection on purpose for us, explaining why one thing leads to another. Sometimes the link between cause and effect is obvious by itself, but sometimes it's not, and you can clean this up by removing the word because. She procrastinated doing the laundry because it was her least favorite chore. She procrastinated doing the laundry. It was her least favorite chore. Or you can rework the sentence even more. She didn't go to the party because she had too much work. She skipped the party to finish her mounting workload. Here, removing the word because forces us to make the sentence more purpose-driven and active. However, because does have its place when maybe cause and effect is not obvious. We can't see the connection between the reasoning why a character is doing something. Like, she stayed because she believed things would get better. In a case like this, because is perfectly fine, because it shows us what this character's reasoning is, and it clarifies her internal motivations. Cut it when because just adds fluff to straightforward connections. Keep it when it clarifies essential reasons or motivations that aren't immediately apparent. And finally, number 10, and possibly the worst weak word of all, is looks. This one is a glaring sign that you are telling rather than showing in your writing. When we say, he looks scared or she looks disappointed, we are taking a shortcut, taking the easy way out, and robbing the reader of being able to experience the emotion, the expressions of this character. For example, he looks scared becomes his eyes widen, a tremble in his hands as he steps back. Or we could take she looks disappointed and turn it into her smile fades, a cloud of disappointment passing through her eyes. Again, by describing the specific actions and the expressions and the body language here, we're letting the reader interpret what they're seeing rather than just telling them what they're seeing. However, sometimes looks can be used if you are needing to deliver information quickly to the reader through an action scene or something like that, or you're letting the narrator kind of project their own perception that isn't accurate onto what they're seeing. For example, Dad looked like he wanted to kill me when he saw the damage I'd done to his car. Looked, in this case, works because we see that the character is perceiving a person's expression a certain way, and it's not necessarily their actual expression, but it's their interpretation of it. Rule of thumb, cut it when looks is just an easy escape from describing precise gestures, expressions, and body language. Keep it when the narrator's emotional state affects how they interpret gestures, expressions, and body language. Okay, boom, that's it. The 10 more weak words that you should cut from your novel, probably in most cases, and when to cut them and when to keep them. If you got value out of this video, definitely check out the guide that I've included below with all the weak words, not just from this video, but also from my previous video. So that's a great companion to this video. If you haven't seen that, you can find the link right there. In the guide, you will find all 20 weak words with the examples of when to cut them and when to keep them. So click the link below this video to download that, print it off, or keep it in your Scrivener. Keep it on hand while you're editing. It will help so much to make your manuscript tighter, cleaner, more polished, and more professional. Comment below and tell me what weak word out of this list are you the most guilty of overusing in your writing. For me, it's probably looks. But that's the beautiful thing about writing. We are always learning and exploring new things together, and I want you to stick around to do more of that with me here on this channel. So hit the subscribe button below if you haven't already, and smash that like button while you're down there. Also check out my Patreon, where we go beyond videos and take storytelling to the next level. The Patreon community is not only the best way to support what I'm doing here on YouTube, but it's also the only way to get access to exclusive monthly live trainings, private Facebook group, Discord, and so many more benefits. I think you'll love it over there, so go to patreon.com/Abbie Emmons and check out all the amazing exclusive content I have over there for you. Until next week, my friend, rock on.